name is April. I am a Navy veteran. I had the best job. I was a singer in the Navy band. It was amazing. And now I am a civilian and I have become an accredited VA claims agent, which means I help veterans with their disability claim appeals. So if you've ever been denied, that's the kind of thing that I help with. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about VA disability and how that's different than pension. We're going to talk about healthcare benefits, just an overview. We could probably talk for 3 days about healthcare benefits. We're going to talk about disability compensation. We're going to cover DIC, burial benefits, memorial benefits, and then we're going to talk about how to apply for VA disability. And I see some of y'all are taking notes. So the two major benefits for veterans is pension and disability. So pension is a needs-based benefit, meaning you have to be below a certain level of income and assets to qualify for pension. You also had to serve during a time of war. That doesn't mean you had to be at war. You didn't have to be deployed, but you had to be serving during a time of war for, I think it's 180 days is the minimum time for that. Disability is not a needs-based benefit. If you have an injury that was incurred during military service, you qualify for disability. You could have $1 million, you could have $2. You still qualify for disability. You also can have been serving at any time and for any length of time. There are veterans who got disabled or got injured in boot camp that qualify for disability benefits. So if you served on active duty any length of time, because I know sometimes people serve in the reserves or the National Guard, so you might not have years and years of service, but if you were activated for 2 weeks and you got injured during those 2 weeks, you qualify for disability benefits. You can get pension or disability, but you cannot get both. So you can apply for both and then choose which is the better benefit once you are approved. So if at the end of this presentation you think, I really need to apply, but I don't know which one I would qualify for or which one is better, you can apply for both, and then once you get approved, it will be very obvious. There will be one monetary benefit that's higher than the other, and you're just going to pick the one that's more money. You cannot get retirement and pension, but you can get retirement and disability. So if you have a disability rating of 50% or higher, you can get them concurrently, which means, I'm just going to make up some numbers. Let's say you get $500 in retirement and you get $500 in disability. You can get them both at the same time. If you have a disability rating less than 50%, then whatever the disability pay is, you get that amount tax-free out of your retirement, and then the rest of your retirement is taxed at whatever rate it usually is. So retirement is you've served 20 years and your retirement, and this, y'all can speak to this better than I can, I'm sure, but your retirement is based on how many years you served, what rank you had. There's many things that go into how much your retirement is. For pension, that's a needs-based benefit. So if you depending on how much your assets are, is dependent on how high your pension may or may not be. So they take however much, I'm oversimplifying this, but they take however much money you have in the bank, subtract that out of what your max pension would be, and then they give you the difference. So that also can go up and down depending on, as your assets deplete over time, you might get higher amounts. And then disability is based just on how much your disability rating is, and that can get higher if your disabilities get worse, or it can go away if you magically wake up and you're all better. That doesn't really ever happen, but it could happen. And disability is not tied at all to how much money you have in the bank. So, in my opinion, a disability benefit tends to be the better benefit between disability and pension, because your disabilities are only going to get worse for the most part. So that amount is always going to climb, versus pension that you kind of always have to prove how much you have in the bank to continue to get it. Yeah, there are many ailments that are presumptive now based on what exposures you might have had in service. Agent Orange being one of them, burn pits being another one we hear a lot about in the news. So there are presumptives, and I'll cover a little bit of presumptive when we get there. But real quick, presumptive just means you don't have to prove as much. So if you were Vietnam, boots on the ground, you are presumed to have Agent Orange exposure. And therefore, if you have any of the diseases or ailments that they know are caused by Agent Orange, you don't have to do any more work. You just say, hey, I have diabetes and I was in Vietnam, boom, you get that benefit. So it does simplify that process a lot. All right, moving on to healthcare benefits. VA provides comprehensive healthcare to eligible veterans. Care ranges from primary care to specialty services, and then there are priority groups based on service history, disability status, and income. So you can receive pension or disability, either one, and be eligible for healthcare through VA. And you can get healthcare for not only your service-connected benefits or service-connected conditions, but also for anything. All right, the key services they offer are preventative care, surgeries, inpatient, outpatient. They also have mental health services for PTSD, substance abuse, things like that. They have specialized care, and then they have community care. This is the benefit that I didn't know anything about and have now since discovered how great of a benefit it is. So it's a little bit of a passion of mine to make sure everyone knows about community care. So this is access to non-VA providers with VA approval. VA will pay for it. So I'm going to use myself as an example here. I am service connected for conditions in my feet. I had bunions on both of my feet, right? Got into service, my feet were fine. Got out of service, my feet were not fine. So that was a service-connected condition, and as I got older, my feet started to bother me, so then I needed surgery on my feet. So I had gone to Ochsner, and I had a surgeon there that I trusted, and he had talked with me about the surgery that he wanted or thought that was best for my foot. So I was like, great. Then I go to VA, and I talked to a surgeon there, not as confident after that conversation, didn't really feel like they were going to do the best job. And that surgeon said, would you rather use your surgeon, your Ochsner surgeon that you've already spoken to? And I said, yes, I would, but I don't want to have to pay for it. Like, this is a service-connected condition. And she said, oh, well, we'll just put in for community care, and VA will pay for you to use the surgeon you want to use. So that's what I did. I got pre-approved through VA for community care. I went to my surgeon at Ochsner, and VA paid for everything. So that's what community care is. You have to get pre-approved. You can't just go get the surgery and then send VA the bill. I wish it was that easy. You can't do it that way. But if you go to VA, also, here's another for instance. Let's say you need to get physical therapy for your back. You are service connected for your back. It's really bad. You need physical therapy. And VA says, great, we'll get you into physical therapy in 6 months. Well, that's not okay. You need physical therapy today, or at least a week from now. Then you can tell VA, that's not acceptable. I need care sooner than that. And then they will offer you community care for that. Sometimes you have to ask. They should just offer right off the bat. But now you know. So if you're ever in that situation, you just say, that's not okay. I need something sooner. And then they will give you community care. Okay, so now we're going to talk about DIC, which is quite a mouthful, Dependency and Indemnity Compensation. And that is a monthly benefit for surviving spouses if you have children that are dependents or parents that are dependents. And this is available if the veteran dies from a service-connected condition or while they are on active duty. So let's say you are a veteran and you're service-connected for a heart condition, and then you die of a heart condition. then your spouse, your dependent, who's on your award, gets DIC for the rest of their lives. Now, if you're a veteran already receiving disability or pension, when the veteran passes away, this, again, should be automatic. It's not always, but once they are notified of the veteran's death, then that should automatically just roll over and they contact the spouse and switch it from a disability payment to a DIC payment. Also, if you are a veteran and you are 100% permanent and total, if you have 100% disability rating and you have that rating for 10 years, then anything you die of after that 10-year period is considered service-connected. Let's also talk about burial and memorial benefits. So you can get buried in a national cemetery free of charge. You can get a grave marker or a headstone. And then if you already have a place that you want to be buried, you can get a reimbursement of funeral costs. And then there's also a presidential memorial certificate for families. So I'll just say, again, from my personal experience, my husband's family got like plots in a mausoleum, whatever you call those things, those slots. So he already has a place to be, but there's not one for me. So I got to thinking, we had a relative die a few years ago, and we're doing all the things. And I thought, you know what? Whenever my time comes, they're gonna have to figure out where I'm gonna go. And I went ahead and went on va.gov and got myself a spot. So whenever that day comes, hopefully a long time from now, I'm already pre-approved for burial in a cemetery, a national cemetery. So it makes it easier for my family. Now, if they don't want to use that, if there's something else they would rather do with me, then they can do that. But it's pre-approved, paperwork's done, makes it easy. And that's something you can just do on va.gov today. Really easy. The spouse can also have a spot. Yes. Now, here's an important thing though. If you choose cremation now, and then for whatever reason, after you die, your family says, no, we don't want to, you can't switch it. So if you gotta choose one or the other, or just apply for a burial benefit, and then let your family choose after, or you know how. But it would cover either one. You just can't switch back and forth. Okay, so now we're gonna get into disability compensation. This will be pretty much the rest of the presentation. And again, we could probably talk about this for days on end and not cover everything. So we're going to do an overview. If you have specific questions, you're welcome to get my card. We can either talk after, or you can contact me at a different time if you have specific things you want to cover. So disability compensation is a tax-free monthly payment to veterans with service-connected injuries or illnesses. And the amount varies based on your rating. It can go from 0% to 100%. So it's legal compensation set by Congress for injuries incurred during active duty. Congress identifies and approves the list found in the 38 Code of Federal Regulation. It's tax-free, but just because it's tax-free doesn't exempt it from being called income. So you're not going to put this on your tax return, but it may prevent like eligibility for welfare or food stamps, and it can be counted as income when applying for loans. So your eligibility is your injury or illness linked to service, and the process, very simplified process here, is filing a claim with medical evidence, and then VA assigns a disability rating. Higher rating equals higher monthly payments. And here's some other reasons, but not just payment reasons, that you might want this benefit. And so even just with 0%, you get base access, you get military discounts, you get a VA ID card, and health care for service-connected conditions. At 10%, you can get a funding fee exemption for your VA home loan, and 30% extra points if you try out for a government job. You get extra money if you have dependents. 50%, we covered this, the concurrent pay for retirees, and free medical care from VA for any medical conditions. And then all the way up to 100%, you get Chapter 35 benefits for dependents, free college in Louisiana, CHAMP VA for your dependents, meaning your spouse can get health care as well, no property tax in Louisiana, free entry into state parks, free parking at the airport, dental, etc., etc. Okay, so here's the pay scale without a dependent. For a 10% rating, you get $171 and some change, all the way up to, at 100%, a little under $4,000, $3,700 and some change. So those are the payments, and that's without a dependent. Once you add a dependent, usually a couple $100 more. All right, and aid and attendance, I'm just covering this a little bit here. I get questions about this a lot, and there's many misconceptions about that. So aid and attendance is a benefit that you can get for your dependent or for yourself. So let's say you and your partner, let's say because of your service-connected condition, you need help. You need help getting dressed, you need help going to the bathroom, you need help eating your food, whatever it is, you need help. That would be aid and attendance. So then that's an additional benefit that you can apply for that is added to either disability or pension. It can be either. There's a misconception out there that it has to be pension, and it is not. It can be for disability or pension. And it could be for your spouse, as long as that spouse or partner is a dependent. If that person, if your partner needs help eating, bathing, whatever, you can get that benefit for them as well. Yeah. Any questions about that? Okay, here's the basic 3 things you need to apply for a disability rating. A chronic disability or an illness. You have to prove that that injury was sustained while you were on active duty, and you have to be able to link that injury during service to the injury that you currently have. So I'm going to use some examples. I work with I have up to 60 veterans now that I'm working with, so I run into a lot of different scenarios just in these 3 points. One scenario is you have a knee problem now. Let's say your right knee really bothers you now. And 30 years ago when you were on active duty, you injured your right knee. And there's something in your medical record that says you injured your right knee. So you apply for VA disability and you say, hey, see, I've injured my right knee in service. And hey, see, my right knee is bothering me now. Seems like it would be a really straightforward disability rating. However, VA then will very often come back and say, yeah, but that was 30 years ago. And there's no chronicity, they like that word, there's no chronicity of care. You can't prove that you've been seen every year for this knee condition since service. So it's probably because you're old. I'm oversimplifying, but I get that a lot in a decision letter that says, it was a long time ago, you probably did something else to your knee. The way that you disagree with that and file an appeal on that is to say, you don't have to prove chronicity of care. You have to prove chronicity of symptoms. And you, as the veteran, can say whether your knee has been hurting since active duty or not. You are allowed to say, or you're, it's your body, you can testify to, hey, I remember when I jumped off of this whatever, injuring my knee in service, and I have been self-treating for this pain ever since with ibuprofen, right? Because ibuprofen is what they give us for everything. So if they try and tell you you can't be service connected because you can't prove that you've been seen ever since you left the military, that is the wrong standard of proof. The standard is chronicity of symptoms, and you can testify to that. All right, there are 5 types of service connection. One is direct, which is something just like the example I just shared. You injured your knee in service. That's really straightforward. Secondary would be my right knee injury caused my left knee arthritis because I've been walking funny. So that would be a secondary condition. Another is presumptive. We've talked about that a little bit. So if you had if you served in the Gulf War, if you're on the burn pit registry, if you had exposure to Agent Orange, etc. Fourth would be aggravation. This, I can use an example from one of my clients on this as well. He went into the service with a slight scoliosis, like just, I don't know all the numbers for this because I'm not a medical professional, but he was noted like just a little bit of mild scoliosis on entry into service. Then he served for 30 years loading airplanes. Well, his scoliosis got worse. So then he's applying for a disability benefit for scoliosis. And initially, VA tried to deny it, saying, oh, no. You had scoliosis when you came in, so that's not service connected. But then you can point to, yeah, but it was mild when I went in, and it's not mild anymore. So that amount that it got worse during my service, that is a disability. So even if, let's say, you had a sprained ankle when you got in or something, if it got worse while you were in, then that's an aggravation of a pre-existing condition. And then that last service connection is for injuries from VA care. So if you were at a VA facility, even something as simple as tripping and falling while you're on your way to your appointment, that can be claimed as a disability as well. Here is a basic filing process. Don't get scared. It says make a va.gov account. If you're not one that wants to do that, that doesn't mean that you can't get benefits. There's other ways. So the next step is submitting an intent to file. And then after you have an intent to file, you have 1 year to then file for that disability. During that 1 year, you collect all your evidence, go to the doctor if you've not been to the doctor, get a nexus letter if you need one, submit your claim, and then attend all of your CMP exams. That's very important. And then wait, because we know VA moves at the speed of government, and that is not fast. All right, let's keep going here. So here is your homework. If you are interested in getting a higher disability rating or appealing a disability claim, start an intent to file. I promise it literally will take 5 minutes or less. You call the number 1-800-827-1000. You must be the veteran or have the veteran with you on the phone. And then you just need your social security number, your date of birth, and the branch that you served in. A lot of times people worry, oh, I can't find my DD-214. You don't need that. You just need social security, date of birth, branch of service. Sometimes you get some really awesome people that'll answer all your questions, and then sometimes people that are having a bad day and just want to get off the phone. I have before called back just to get a different person. So CMP exams, once you turn in your disability application, they may or may not schedule a CMP exam. Usually, you turn in your claim and they will contact you for an exam within 2 or 3 weeks. So here's another, ish. Just another tip. If you are going to be going on a cruise, you may not, don't file your disability claim and then just leave the country for 2 weeks. So that's where the intent to file comes in. You have a year. So if you kind of know, I have some clients that are school teachers, so we filed their claims this month because we know they're going to be available for CMP exams June, July, August. That's some free time for them. But if you know you're going to take your grandkids to Disney next month, you might want to wait till you come back to file those claims, because once they contact you for those CMP exams, they really expect you to jump to it. They're not very accommodating if you need to reschedule. You can. It's just, I like to avoid that fight if I can. Now, if you file your claim, you get a denial, you have a 1 year window to file an appeal and maximize back pay. So that means, let's say you got a denial letter last month, and then you appeal 6 months from now. As long as you're within the 1 year window of your disability, of your decision letter, when you get approved eventually, then the back pay will go back to the original time you filed. As long as you keep it alive, you gotta keep it alive. If you don't keep it alive, then you're gonna lose that earliest effective date. And earliest effective date is great because then you get the back pay from, let's say your disability rating increases from 50 to 70%. The difference in that payment, you get that amount for every month since that intent to file. All right, so you can either do a higher level review or a supplemental appeal. A higher level review is basically somebody missed something really obvious and we just need somebody smarter to look at it. So let's say you were denied for that right knee condition and they said there was no injury in service, but there was an injury in service. So you put in a higher level review and you say, hey, there was an injury in service, take another look. And then hopefully they come back to you in a few months and say, yeah, you're right, here you go, approved. A supplemental appeal is one where they say, hey, you didn't have a right injury in service, and you say, oh, you know what, it wasn't in my medical record because I didn't go to medical because that's not what you do. I was too busy doing my job and didn't have time to go to sick call. I'm gonna write a letter explaining that, and even better, if you have a buddy, somebody you served with who can also attest to, oh yeah, I remember when he injured his right knee. That's gold if you have that, that's amazing. You can also go all the way up to the Board of Veterans Appeals. That is gonna take a year or more. I don't recommend it, at least not for the first round. Like, you wanna try a higher level review or a supplemental appeal first. Okay, so here's some common questions. I'll go ahead and cover these, and then if you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. One would be, why was I denied? That decision letter is going to tell you why you were denied. So another common reason for denial, and I'll use myself as an example again. I had shin splints while I was on active duty. I was diagnosed with shin splints. I was treated for shin splints. It was an issue. So when I got out, I filed for shin splints as a disability because, hey, that was something that happened to me in service. Well, I don't currently have an issue with shin splints. So I was denied service connection for that, rightly so, because that's not a disability that I have right now. So if you had that right knee injury in service, but actually right now your right knee is fine, VA is going to deny it because, you injured your right knee in service, but your right knee is fine now, so you can only be paid for injuries that you still suffer from. And then what does deferred mean? That just means they're going to take longer to process your claim. It just means we're still thinking about it. This will often happen if you filed for like 8 disabilities. And then they can already make decisions on 4 or 5 pretty quickly. So they go ahead and send you a decision letter on those 4 or 5. And then for the other 3, they say, these are deferred, just meaning it's going to take us a little more time. We're still working on it. Often that'll happen if you have a mental health claim, specifically PTSD. They do a lot of research to make sure they can verify your stressors, and that often takes longer than it would for other claims. And then, can I file a claim if it's been 20 years? Yes, or more, 20 years or more. I got a call the other day from someone who's the daughter of a Korean War veteran, and she said, I don't even know if they still have his records. They still have his records. They still have everybody's records, right? It's not like the civilian world where they're only required to keep your medical records for 7 years. The military will keep them forever. Whether they can find them or not is a whole nother thing, but they are somewhere. With a very few exceptions, they are somewhere. So you can file at any time, and it just might be a little more difficult to prove, I'll go back to the right knee injury. You just might have to do a little extra work to prove that that's the same injury that you're still suffering from now. But you can do it anytime. Anything else? Yeah. It is a possibility. If you file, let's say, we'll keep using the right knee, okay? So let's say you have a 10% disability rating for your right knee, and it's gotten worse. Maybe you've even gotten a knee replacement. So you file for an increase on your right knee because it's gotten worse. Well, they are going to reevaluate your right knee, and if for some reason they don't think it's gotten worse, they actually think it's better, then they could reduce that rating. It could happen. It is a possibility. Great question. You have a year if you want to keep that earlier effective date. But if you want to wait 20 years and appeal it then, you can do that too. Yeah, you can. You're just going to only have the effective date of that recent appeal. And here's another point, because I had somebody call the other day and think that because they had done a higher level review and then a supplemental claim, she thought she had used them both up and she couldn't do another supplemental. And that's not true either. You can just keep that merry-go-round running if you want to. If you still have new evidence you want to submit, you can do another supplemental claim. If they deny the supplemental and you think they missed something, you can do another higher level review. The only thing you can't do is a higher level review of a higher level review. You gotta have a supplemental in there, but other than that, you can just keep it going. If you had Agent Orange exposure or you had burn pit exposure and you're just now starting to have lung problems or you're just now diagnosed with diabetes, whatever, now's the time you can put in that claim and that presumptive will cover you. So when the PACT Act was put into law, sometimes people would call me and say, I want to do a PACT Act claim, thinking that is like a separate thing that you have to do. And it's not. PACT Act is now part of the law. It's part of the 38 Code of Federal Regulations. And any claim you put in is now analyzed using those new laws. So you don't have to do anything special if you have a PACT Act or an Agent Orange or whatever. You just put in your claim, tell them where you were, and that presumptive will kick in. Let's say you and your buddy both served together in Vietnam, and you both had the same exposures, you had the same duties, you did all the same things. And you come back and you stay friends, and here we are years and years later, and your buddy has, let's say, 100% disability rating, but you only have a 50% disability rating. And you think, wait a minute, we did all the same things, how come we don't have the same disability? Well, it's because maybe that person has more of the diseases than you have, or that person had more injuries than you have. So I see it a lot with post 9/11 veterans that got hazardous duty pay while they were deployed. So they think, hey, we both got hazardous duty pay, so we both should get the same disability rating. It's not the same. So even though you got paid the same as all your buddies while you were in, once you get out, disability ratings were different. Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your very good questions. My specialty is appeals, so that's what I help. If you've put in a disability claim and you've gotten denied, that's where I come in and help. So I'm happy to talk about that if you have questions about that later.